Hey everybody, this is Kim Hewitt, and welcome to the first session of web design. This is a 1 week session, and there's some stuff that you want to get done, but it's not, it's not a serious load in terms of you're not going to be reading chapters of the book yet. You don't have to get a book. You don't have to start designing web pages quite yet. So this week's all about just getting oriented. Getting that copy of the syllabus, reading about some of the class policies, kind of learning broadly what the assignments are going to be like, and that kind of thing. Just kind of getting warmed up for the semester. And then starting next Monday, or the Monday, let's see, Monday, August 31st, you will begin getting your first real assignments that are related to the actual course objectives of the course. All right, so I'm looking at the home page of the course, and let's go on into the content area where you've already been because you found this video there. I am in student view, so this should look fairly familiar. And right now we only have session 0 or orientation session open. There's several more that will be popping open as the semester continues. But this is all you should see for now. And in this session we have these 4 pages you want to visit. The last one in this session is a checklist. I'll go ahead and just start there just to show you. But you can use this checklist to note to yourself that you've finished things. And normally I put the checklist first in a session, but for the very first one, I wanted you to pop in, and I wanted the first thing for you to see when you came in to actually be the welcome page with the video that you're watching now and that kind of thing. So, but again, starting in session 1 next week, the checklist will be your first item that you see. All right, so one of the things you have to get used to anytime you're in a new online course with a different professor or instructor is how they design their online courses. And just to give you a quick idea of how I usually do it, there's actually 3 main pages that are in my module. There could be extra ones sometimes when there's more material. But I always have a welcome page where I have like a video where I sort of welcome you to the orientation, to the session. Maybe I give you some hints. I might give you some updates on things that I've heard from students in the course that have necessitated changes in the course. So I might use this sort of welcome page as an opportunity to give you an overview of the session and also kind of update you on stuff. And normally the way I design it is that you don't have to watch my video in order to be successful, but some people might find that it's helpful to pull them in. Technically, if you are armed with the checklist and the activities page, then you are set. So the 3 main pages that you're going to find in a module, like sort of the 3 most important ones in my module design, are a checklist, a welcome page, and then an activities page. Usually just one, but sometimes more than one. And that tells you what you're supposed to do. In this special one, we've also got a syllabus, course plan, and communication page. It's kind of like a policy page. But all right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So your job is going to be to, after you watch this video, is to come back in and read and view everything that I've put in here. And it's not a ton of stuff, but read everything on this welcome page. Make sure you've had the opportunity to watch my Meet the Professor video. If you want to watch it, it's another one of those things that I think it might be helpful for you to know a little bit about where I'm coming from, but it was kind of a long 16-minute video. So watch some of it and get to know me a little bit. Make sure you can see things on the news feed, so the homepage. Make sure that you're able to see all content and that you are practiced in doing so. So depending on what browser you're in, like right now I'm in Chrome, sometimes you'll hit elements in your online course that are invisible, and if you don't have sort of a practiced eye or you're not thinking about it, you don't even notice that things are not showing. You might not, if you're not really with it. If you're in this online course, say at like 2 a.m. and you've just had a 16-hour work day and you're exhausted and you're working on this, you may not notice that things are not appearing. So be sure you go back to that news feed and you learn how to make things show. I like to put module objectives on the welcome page as well, just so you kind of know what are the things that you're going to be working on. It's another way of writing a checklist, kind of, isn't it? But it's sort of expected in good instructional design that you list out your learning objectives for the students. Some of these are not learning objectives. Some of them are just doing stuff, but you'll always see some kind of objectives on that page. Okay, so what you want to do on this page is, of course, read all this, download the syllabus, read it. There's a tiny chance that I will update it. It seems like I always update syllabi during the first week, but if I do that, what I want you to know is that you are safe to go ahead and read this thing now and read it in detail. And if I make any changes, I'm going to tell you exactly where those changes were so that you don't have to reread the entire syllabus, because I know that wastes your time. So it would just be a few tweaks, and I would actually write on the front page of the syllabus in a little extra box, what are those things that got changed in the next version, so that you know. All right, the course plan is an awesome tool for telling us what's due when, and like what is the time of a session, like how long does the session 0 actually span. Well, it spans from Monday, August 24th to Sunday, August 30th, and by that time this is the stuff that you want to do that has points attached to it. So make sure you do this stuff. So the next session will be a 2-week session. During this period of time, ending on the Sunday at midnight, you'll want to have these 2 things done at a minimum, and if you wanted, you can do this optional 3rd assignment, and so on. So we have lots of 2-week sessions until Thanksgiving week hits us. So Sunday, November 22nd ends our last 2-week session. Then we have Thanksgiving break. Don't do any work during Thanksgiving break. And sorry, Siri was talking to me. And then session 7 is our last session, our sort of winding down session, and it's only 1 week, so it's that week after Thanksgiving. So check this out. It's a really simple little plan that tells you what our session dates are and then what's due at the end of each of those sessions. I think it's pretty well spaced out. All right, you can print the course plan by going to this dot dot dot, click print, click Control P, and it's a pretty printer friendly looking. It's fairly printer friendly document if you do that. What's not printer friendly is when you click export PDF. It looks ghastly. So anyway, it's not my favorite place to put the course plan, but the reason I do it is because I can quickly edit it, tweak it, and it's because it is sort of a dynamic thing. The plan can be a little bit dynamic. It's not always set in stone. So you want to kind of bookmark this page and just visit it constantly. And in every single session, one of the first things I'll do is remind you to go look at the course plan. So it's like one of those things I just tell you to do. Welcome to this next session. Go look at the course plan. Make sure you're aware of what we're doing this session. Make sure you're aware of the big picture. So it's something I try to call your attention back to constantly as well. Okay, orientation activity. So what are we going to do? I highly recommend that you fill out my student contact form so that I can get a hold of you if anything, any sort of crisis hits, if you have some kind of assignment that I need information from you on. It just seems like every semester there's 5 students that I have to use this form to get a hold of, and it's never to bust you or make you uncomfortable, hopefully. I usually don't end up calling people, but it's really helpful to have it. And yes, I do have some contact information inside of BandWeb. It's just I found that at least with undergraduates, that information is often not useful. Like it doesn't have the right phone numbers, that kind of thing. But it could be that for you guys, since you're graduate students, that your BandWeb information is up to date, and that's fine. But then the question becomes how hard am I going to work to go find your phone number and call you? I mean, I would like to say that I will work very hard to do that, but you're more likely to get a call from me when you need a call from me if you just put it here. Also, I like to import your contact info into my cell phone just during this semester, and then I delete it after the semester's over, because trust me, I don't want thousands of my students' contact info in my cell phone. But it's really handy because then I know if you've called me or if you've texted me, as opposed to just seeing some unrecognizable number has called me. Then I'll just think it's a spammer. So it's just another way to stay in touch. Make sure that I notice that you've called if you've called me. Your CourseDin profile, go ahead and make sure you've updated that. You can just go up here and click on, like, I think it's your head, click on your name, and then go to the profile tool. And of course, everybody in all of your classes can see this profile. So it doesn't have to be specific to this class. It just needs to be sort of a generic profile for you. And I gave you some tips on some things you might mention. Introduce yourself to the class. So this is an assignment that has points attached to it. And it's got some specific stuff because I wrapped it in. There's actually used to be a second assignment where I was kind of interviewing you, kind of grilling you about stuff, but I've softened that. I've removed some of those questions, and really, what this discussion does is one, it lets you meet a couple of other classmates, meet your other classmates, and two, it kind of lets me know where you guys are as learners, as people who are about to do web design. It lets me know what you think your skills are and what are your interests and what are your needs and what use is this topic to you, that kind of thing. So if you click on this, you'll see here the questions I want you to answer. Yeah, it's a lot of questions. It's a little bit bogged downy for a discussion, and I know it kind of breaks some of my own rules because I think that a good online discussion should actually you shouldn't force a student to write like a huge essay in their opening discussion, but at the same time, I think that it's appropriate for folks to have their chance to introduce themselves thoroughly, let us know why you're here. Obviously, some of you are here because it's on your program sheet to be here, but some of you choose to be here, and I want to know more about those needs that you've got because then I know you better. Then I can maybe teach you a little bit better, that kind of thing. And then there's always some folks who are, beginners, and there's some folks who are like, way better than I am at web design. Like last spring, I had some folks like that. And so I have to make sure I keep everybody appropriately challenged. So give us some good info in here and make sure you respond to at least 2 of your peers in here. And do know that, I mean, you probably know this, but you can access your discussion boards through this button. You can access the Dropbox through this button, that kind of thing. So I am going back into the session though, but what I always like to include a link to that, like that discussion board. There's always going to be a link inside of my session. I'm not going to expect you to. I don't like to just say go do a discussion and not link to it. I have to provide the link as well. That's my design obsession, should I say. But let's say that I didn't do it, or if you're in another professor's class, you of course know probably that you can go click up here, discussions, and that will give you a list of all the discussions that are visible to you, and you can access it that way. Okay, let me go back. All right, we've got a board. Really, it's just honestly, it's almost like an anything goes board, but you can ask questions, you can make comments, and I call it the peer-to-peer Q&A board, because I would like for this to be a place where you guys can ask and answer one another's questions. And if you don't mind, if I'm kind of lurking and passing through and I notice a question that I know the answer to, I'll probably chime in and answer it as well. It used to be more of it's always been kind of this way, but I'm trying to make it more, emphasizing more that it's a peer-to-peer thing, because honestly, I just stink at these kinds of discussion boards that go on the whole semester. I know I should check it, but it's like we have so many things we have to check now. We've got our text messages, I've got a couple email addresses I have to check. I've got my Coursed-in messages. I've got one up there right now, and by the time you've checked all these other message places, it's like these other places like some discussion board that may or may not have a question. It's hard to keep up. So I know my weakness, and so I'm gonna put it more on you guys to answer one another's questions, but at the same time I am gonna try to come in and check it and definitely chime in on threads and try to also lend a hand. If you have a question you just don't know the answer to, nobody else does, just send me a message and I'll answer it. And maybe I'll even come out and post on the peer-to-peer board sometimes if something useful comes out. I already talked to you about the session checklists. That's the next item. And where to from here. Starting at the beginning of session 1, we'll start authoring in HTML, doing sort of raw coding using a plain text editor. You don't have to have anything fancy. If you're on a PC, you're going to need the program, this program I just popped up here. It's called Notepad, And if you're on a Mac, a program I like to use on my Mac is TextEdit. Let's see. Yeah, TextEdit. Maybe this is it right here. Well, you can kind of see it. But you just have to make sure on the Mac that you, anyway, I'm getting into too much detail about it, but you want to make sure that you turn off the rich text feature because the TextEdit on the Mac has some rich text features. But anyway, we're going to be doing that raw coding for 2 weeks in HTML. So that'll start on Monday, and I'll get the next session open by probably by Friday of this first week. That's my goal. And I hope to do a better job on that in that session of actually talking more about what this class is about. But let me go ahead and give you a sneak peek of that. Oh gosh, I'm already at 16 minutes again on this video. Let me show you very, very quickly the way this class is designed. We use a couple texts. One of them I actually removed from the class, but I'm going to incorporate it by providing you notes from it, like sort of the key takeaways from this non-designer's book. It's the non-designer's, what is it called? I have it right here. The non-designer's web book, 3rd edition. And it was a required text in spring, but it's sort of out of print, and it's kind of dated, and I just hate to make you guys buy something that's really 10 years old. It's kind of crazy old for a technology book. So I'm going to pull the major takeaways out of that and try to teach you, and it's not going to be the most elegant, but it'll probably be in just Word docs or PDFs where I've kind of bulleted out the major points that you want to be aware of. So that's going to take me a bit of time to do that. But the other one is a free text. It's all about how you design multimedia, including web pages and things like that. So those are texts, so sort of the core text that we're going to read. So during session 1, we're going to learn about HTML basics, and you're going to make 2 to 3 web pages using that raw coding. In session 2, we're going to learn more about some design basics, and we're going to use a WYSIWYG tool like Adobe Dreamweaver, for example, or Microsoft Expressions Web, or any number of other WYSIWYGs. And a WYSIWYG editor is it means, it stands for what you see is what you get. So it's basically like, let me show you really quickly. I know a lot of you know what a WYSIWYG is, but I'm going to show you inside of here, and then you'll be like, ah, that's a WYSIWYG. All right, so this is an HTML page, and if I go to Edit HTML, then this is the WYSIWYG, this editing space where it pops open, and it's like kind of like being in Microsoft Word, and you've got all of these menus full of features that are really easy to use. That's the WYSIWYG. If you want, or the what you see is what you get, because you format and you type and you make it look the way you want it to ultimately look. But and that's contrasted with the actual HTML source. This is not so much the what you see is what you get, right? Because here what we see, this is not what we get once that page is produced. So this is more raw coding, and we're not going to do quite this deep and detailed of raw coding, but we're going to kind of get there a little bit in our raw coding that we do in session 1. So that's where we're headed in that next session. Let me go back to my little chart here. So that's session 3, that WYSIWYG designing. And then I meant to say session 2. Session 3, we're going to be learning about copyright, Section 508 compliance, and design principles. A lot of things kind of jammed in there, a bit of reading as well. In session 4, we'll be learning about and creating evaluation strategies for our web-based product, our website, for example. And then the last piece of the class, and I call this the WYSIWYG decision bar, and I'll talk to you more about that next week. But the last assignments of the course are all about you building a website. So you're going to, through the project plan, you're going to plan it out in detail, then you're going to build it, you're going to publish it, and then you're going to evaluate one other classmate's website using the evaluation tool that your classmate created for their website. So like Jennifer will have a website she wants to create, and she will create an evaluation tool. And then if you're assigned to evaluate Jennifer's website, you're going to use her tool that she created for her website. So, and then of course we end with the final reflection. So that gives you a quick snapshot of the class. That's why I'm asking you in the first discussion, what is it that you want to do with web design? What's your goal? And I'm going to say this now, and I may say it again. I'll try to say it again in session one next week. But I've kind of decided to allow you to, instead of doing a website, to actually build an app. Like with MIT App Inventor, that's kind of the tool that I would recommend that you use. But the problem with my allowing you to do this is that you have to be very self-directed if you're going to choose that. So we'll talk more about that. If that's something of interest to you, then you need to be very self-directed. You need to be very willing to go teach yourself how to do it, because I do not have any materials whatsoever for that. And I'm not able to produce those this semester. I'm teaching 4 classes, and 2 of them are new to me, so it's already going to take me a lot of time. And then translating your textbook from a textbook into Word documents with notes is also going to take a lot of time for this class. So again, if the app option is of interest to you, be thinking about that and maybe be exploring. Look at MIT App Inventor, and even if you don't have an Android device, you can use it, and you can test your app in an emulator. So it's like you can see the app on your computer screen itself. You can test it there. All right, so I have given you guys an earful, a 22-minute welcome video. I promise you they get shorter. I promise you. All right, I hope you guys have a great first session, and I look forward to getting to know you guys. All right, bye-bye.